So, friend of the channel is back with another Fazbear Friday, fun-tastic Fazbear Fest time. And it's something that we have discussed at nauseum. And I'm pretty sure I even talked about this last week. The thing that I hate talking about more than anything, but it's the same thing as the LeBron Jordan GOAT debate, where I hate talking about it because of how, mundane it feels and how we talk about the same things for years and we always end up on the same points and it feels like we get nowhere. And that's the death order of who dies first in the series. Because out of Susie, who goes on to possess Chica, you have the FNAF 4 Crime Child, who may or may not be Dave or Dave. It's Dave, because David is someone else, connected to Edwin. You have Charlotte the Puppet, Henry's daughter. You have Elizabeth Afton, the other Afton child. They all have a case to be the first death. And the problem is, they may have all of a case, but it doesn't fit cleanly. And each of those cases, and that's what makes it so frustrating, is there's evidence to say, yes, they are the first death because of reason A, B, and C. While also you have to ignore reason, D, E, F, G, H, I, J of the reasons why they can't be the first victim because these other characters have the case to be the first victim. So you have to ignore evidence. And that's why I say it's the same thing as the LeBron Jordan GOAT debate, because it may be stupid and it may be talked about at nauseum. I feel like we get nowhere, but it's still so fun to talk about and just think about and just theorize. It's just so fun. But before we get into that, obviously, you know how we do these things. Banter section, but I will obviously, now that I know how to do it, I will put chapters in each of these videos from the foreseeable future. So if you just want to skip my random banter about whatever we talk about and you want to skip to the actual content where you clicked on the video on, there will be an end marker for you to click on. But something I want to talk about today is Toy Story 5. Which is bizarre, and I don't know why I'm talking about this, but hey, it just came out, so that is what my head is currently at right now. But the reason why it's on my mind is I've not seen it, so it's not going to be like a review, and I'm not planning on seeing it. But it made me stop and think that other people who have seen Toy Story 5, it does seem like the reviews are way more positive than I had initially expected, because when it was first announced that Toy Story 5 was, being made, I feel like everybody else had the same collective agreement, which is something that is not common on the internet, where the internet collectively has the same uniform opinion that's like, why are you making this besides it making money? Because, Toy Story is Pixar's like magnum opus. Like, if you want an easy cash grab, you make Toy Story movies, right? Over any other franchise that Pixar has ever made. Toy Story is their cash cow. Same thing that goes with like Disney, where it's like Star Wars you would initially think, but Mandalorian Grogu didn't really do that well. And then it would be like Marvel with the MCU, but it also is not doing well. But you get what I mean. But I am surprised that people are having a somewhat positive reaction to Toy Story 5. Because again, I saw it as a cash grab. Because why are we making, Toy Story 5? Like, I feel like, despite of what I just said a minute ago, of how these movies are a cash grab and that's what they are, I feel like each movie that comes out later on, like, let's just say you know what? I'm not going to say it. They are going to make a Toy Story 6 and 7. Let's just be honest. Call a spade a spade. They're going to make a Toy Story 9. And I'm calling a spade a spade. Not only are they going to make a Toy Story 9, but I feel like each chapter that they make of the Toy Story movies, it takes away the impact of the iconic emotional ending of the trilogy, right? Toy Story 1 for all of its flaws, looking at it, hindsight 2020 vision, like, people say, oh, the, dog looks terrible. I'm not saying the dog looks great. It obviously doesn't. But I feel like Toy Story 1 gets a pass despite it looking outdated because, well, it's the first animated movie that was made on a computer. So because of the cultural relevance that came with that, you kind of have to, not really make the, dated animation a nitpick because that's just what they had at the time. And Toy Story 2 came out, and it's, one of those cases where it's better than the predecessor. And I feel like a lot of people view it as not only a great sequel, but it's also one of the best sequels to ever be made in cinema. The same thing as like Shrek 2, Empire Strikes Back, Toy Story 2, I feel like is in that camp. And then Toy Story 3 was a great end of the trilogy, great emotional send-off, and that's where the story ended. Toy Story 4, just a cash grab. Now, did I see Toy Story 4? Yes. I saw it once in a theater, and that was it. Like, that was good enough for me. I did not need to see it again, and I feel like all I need to say about how I would define Toy Story 4 is people will talk about, again, Toy Story 1, of how it's the first animated movie to be made on a computer, so it's relevant there. Toy Story 2, again, one of the best sequels and one of the best movies to be ever made. Toy Story 3, emotional send-off. Toy Story 4, nobody talks about it. Nobody cares, right? You saw it once in a theater just to see like, oh, what are they going to do? And then you saw it, and I guarantee within a week later, you did not think about it. I don't even remember what the plot of Toy Story 4 was because it just has left no impact. And Toy Story 5, I feel like is going to be in the same boat where people may have a positive reaction right now. Same thing with Toy Story 4. But you know what? Give it like a week or so, and I feel like nobody's going to be talking about this movie, respectfully. Because again, the movies ended at 3. But that's enough of the banner section. Let us dive into the actual reason why we are doing this video, and that is talking about FNAF, another movie that is about to wrap up its trilogy. That I'm not ashamed to admit it is not on the same trilogy quality as Toy Story, unfortunately. But we'll have that conversation for a different day.
William Afton is fairly known for doing murders. That's kind of the whole point of Five Nights at Freddy's. But while we know plenty about his most famous victims, the missing child incident, Charlotte Emily, even Elizabeth Afton, if unintended, there's one murder that William did that thus far has flown mostly under the radar. One that may have been his first victim, and frankly, one that might not have even been intended. And, okay, technically that would make it manslaughter, but like, just stick with me here. So, who was William Afton's forgotten victim? The tracks for
first victim, again, the reasons and cases for all characters. It goes as follows. Chica, Susie. The reason why their argument to be first is the lines from Ultimate Custom Light where she says, I was first, I'm the one who's seen everything. Charlotte, their reasons for being first. Henry's, lines from FNAF 6, where he says, a wound first inflicted on me, that'll let spread to others. A wound first inflicted on me being his child, that'll let spread to others, meaning other children that died later on. So that's Charlotte. FNAF for Crying Child, he has a case to be first because we believe that the FNAF for Crying Child, their death is what caused the later deaths to occur. And what I mean by that is, obviously Steel Wool did not control FNAF or have any control when FNAF 4 came out, but they have gone on this, campaign, so to speak, over the last few years where they're trying to make William Afton more human, and they're trying to make it a very strong point that William Afton doesn't just kill for the fun of it. He just wants to kill kids just because he enjoys it. right? He kills kids because other wrongdoings, other things happened in his life that caused him to go down this path, right? And a lot of people point to that quote and then what happened in FNAF 4. They point to, hey, in FNAF 4, my child was shoved in the mouth of an animatronic and then was bitten and killed. Now, the reason why that's important is because we also believe that the Golden Freddy, Fredbear, and Golden Bonnie that was on stage in the FNAF 4 nights was made by Henry. He was the one who made the spring lock mechanisms that control those animatronics. Dakota, if you're still here, let me know if we're back. OBS just crashed mid-sentence, so that's awkward when I have to go back and edit this. And it's also annoying because I was literally in mid-talking, so I don't even remember what I was saying. So that makes it even more annoying. But I was talking about death orders, and oh yeah, I was talking about the FNAF 4 Crime Child case. So to extrapolate all out, and the reason why the FNAF 4 Crime Child death is important is because the Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie spring lock suits that were on stage during those nights, they were spring lock suits. And we believe, at least at one point, now Secret Mimic throws all that out the window, but we believed that Henry was the one who made the spring lock mechanisms. So if you think about it, William Afton saw an animatronic with a spring lock mechanism made by his business partner Henry that would then later be used to kill William Afton's child, which would then in turn cause William Afton to lash out and then kill Charlotte, Henry's daughter, as revenge, saying, oh, your animatronic creation killed one of my children. Okay, I'm going to kill one of your children as revenge just to show you how it feels. And that also would kind of have your cake and eat it too. That also would have a little bit merit of Henry's line in FNAF 6 saying a wound first inflicted on me that'll spread to others. Now, is it different contexts and defined a little bit differently? Yes, because instead of it being a wound first inflicted on me that had spread to others being the first death, it would instead be, it's not the first death, but instead it's like the first death that William Afton does as like his revenge quest of killing kids. But it's not the first death in the series. So that's the case for the FNAF 4 Crime Child. But then you have Elizabeth Afton, Crime Child's sister. You have the bedroom that's empty. There's the case right there. But then you also have the whole thing about, you know, the FNAF 4 Crime Child. Why is he scared of the animatronics? That does not get explained. And that would be the counterpoint to why he can't be, excuse me, why he can't be early in the death order. Because he's scared of the animatronics because, oh, be careful what you saw, remember what you saw, remember what you saw. You saw something that made you scared of the animatronics. What did he see? Well, we believe that he potentially saw his younger sister get close to the animatronics, and then the stomach hatch comes out the animatronic, a giant claw comes out the baby animatronic, and claw and scoop and promptly kill his sister Elizabeth Afton. So essentially, the FNAF 4 Crime Child, what he's scared about is he saw what happens when you get too close to the animatronics. That's what he's scared of. But then in turn, that would mean he can't be the first death if he saw someone get killed before him, and that's what makes him scared. So you see why the death order is so fun and so addicting, but it's so complicated because every single person has a case to be the first death, but there's also all this active evidence that you have to actively ignore and say, no, I acknowledge that this evidence exists, but no, I have to actively ignore it because I believe that this person's the first death.
for this train of thought have their first station in Help Wanted 2. It's a weird game on the face of it. One of probably the most fun FNAF games to ever come out, but very esoteric and weird when you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Help Wanted 1 made...
I personally have not played the FNAF VR Help Wanted game, so I cannot speak on the fun perspective from a personal experience, but also fun is entirely subjective. But I would say for fun for me, I'm just going to the list. FNAF 1, FNAF 2, FNAF 3, FNAF 4, Sister Location, Custom Night, Security Breach, and the Ruin DLC, Into the Pit, and Secret of the Mimic. Those are the FNAF games that I played. And I would say the games that I find the most fun, I feel like I have to at least mention FNAF 1 being up there as the most fun. It's the game that I played the most. It's literally what started this whole franchise. And I feel like if you tracked my hours in every single FNAF game that I've played, I feel like FNAF 1 is easily, without a doubt, the one that I played the most amount of hours. So I have to say FNAF 1. FNAF 2 is also very fun. It's not at all scary, but it being very fast-paced is very fun, very addicting, very satisfying because of how fast-paced you have to be. You have to use the flashlight to shine down the hallway to, stop someone like Foxy because the mask doesn't trick them. You also have to use the mask mechanic to block off animatronics that come into the room. You have to wind the music bots. You have to be aware of the events of the animatronics that come to the room before you. You have to do a lot of resource management where it's not scary, but in the later nights, you have to be literally split decision, making split decisions within half a second. It's very fast. It's very chaotic, but the feeling you have where you are at like 4, 5 a.m. at like night 5 and night 6, where again, you have to make split decisions and go in at, 300 miles an hour brain power, and every decision has to be made within a split second. It's so satisfying. So I would say that would be a top choice. FNAF 3 is not fun. It's just not. I didn't enjoy it when the game came out, and I didn't enjoy it now a decade later. So pass. FNAF 4, it can be fun, but it also can be a little bit frustrating, a little bit annoying because of the subjective nature of not having any cameras in it, all being down to auditory. And what I mean by that is, even though that the whole game is about listening, and you have to make the right decision every single time, where every single time you go down to a door, you have to decide whether do you shine the flashlight or do you close the door. If you shine the flashlight and they're there, they kill you. But if you close the door when there's no one there, they will also kill you. So you have to make the right decision to act. But the problem is the audio is very up in the air. There are times where the audio is very obvious and it's very easy to make the right decision. But then there's other times where it's so hard to hear any audio cue. So you feel like you don't hear anything, but then there actually is something there and then you die because of it. So the audio is challenging because the audio level does change, but that's also makes it a little bit frustrating. Is sometimes it feels like you're fighting against the game, where it's like, I didn't hear that. This is bullshit. I shouldn't have died, but okay. Sister Location, I don't really consider it a game. I don't really have much fun with it. It's not something I go back to very often, simply because there's not a lot of game to it. It's kind of just going to all these very cool environments and seeing these very cool futuristic animatronics, with this also being the first game where there's voice acting. That's really it. So it's not really fun there. Especially because night 1, there's no chance for you to die. Night 2, I believe that's the Freddy power room, so there is a chance for you to die. Night 3, I don't believe there's anything that can kill you. Night 4 is very hard. It's a Springlock challenge that had to be patched on release because of how difficult it was. And then Night 5 is more, just story. You can't really die. The only reason why you would die in Night 5 is if you do the cupcake minigame and you unlock the entered boss room, the hidden room. But simply you getting the power module chip from Baby, then go in the scooping room, and then you die. That's pretty much it. So it's not really a game that you play. It's more of you're just watching an experience and listen to great voice acting. Custom Night is very fun simply because there's 50 characters. You get to make your own game. You get to make your own challenge, however challenging or easy you want it to be. I'm not good at Ultimate Custom Night at all. But it is definitely very fun. Enough said there. I think it's a pure wizardry that you can have a game where there's 50 plus characters and every single one has a unique mechanic and nothing feels stale or boring. Where it's like, yeah, you may have 50 characters, but you can essentially remove 30 of them and it doesn't change the game at all. Not really. Ultimate Custom Night is great. Security Breach, I know I was very mean to it on release date because of how glitchy, buggy of a mess it was. And I still don't really like it, but I feel like my initial reaction is toned down a bit. I'm a little bit nicer to Steel Wool over the years. But it's still not great. It's not that difficult. I don't like the whole neon glowing setting. It's not scary at all. So it's not that fun. It's not something that I want to revisit compared to like FNAF 1 or FNAF 2. Ruin. I've did it once. Did a playthrough. Have it up on the channel right now. You can watch each of the individual episodes. Or you can watch the full-on playthrough where we compile all the episodes together in one stream if you want to do that. So go ahead and watch that after you go watch this. And speaking of, click that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell for more FNAF content because I'm going to do more FNAF content. I love it. I love this series. I love talking about it. I love playing it. And I love taking terabytes of my brain memory to talk about this series, no matter how frustrating it may be talking about the lore. So yeah, do that. And obviously it helps boost out the algorithm as well. And then Into the Pit. I would say a pleasant surprise. Not a game that I was really excited about going in. But I played it and it was a pleasant surprise. It was very fun. I've only personally played it once, and that was for streaming. Which again is also on the YouTube archive page, so go do that. But it's also a game where I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll play it again on my own time because I legitimately enjoyed it. It was a great surprise. But I would say FNAF 1, FNAF 2, it feels cheating, are my two favorite, most fun FNAF games. And then there's a bit of a drop up between 4 and the rest of them. FNAF 1, FNAF 2, it's just light years above everything. I know it's not a pun because I was talking about Toy Story in the banter section, but yeah, it's just levels above everything else.
Sense. It was a collection of in-universe games that served as a way to play through the franchise in VR, and it was explained in-game what the game was. But then we get to Help Wanted 2, and immediately it's unclear as to what is going on. Is this monitor in the center of the lobby diegetic, or does it exist within the game? If it's a real monitor that we're using, are we going through security footage? Are we reviewing files and remembering what we did there? Are we reviewing the Mimic's memories? If this monitor isn't in the game world and it's just for the player to pick your minigame, then that makes even less sense. Are we just sitting around doing nothing and thinking about stuff? It's never quite clear. My personal pet theory is it's the AR mask showing us whatever we're pulling up on the monitor. We know it's capable of doing that, but the problem is you can access minigames without the mask on, so what gives? It's made even muddier by the fact that not all of these minigames happen at the same time. Not only do you have minigames from before Security Breach to after Ruin, but there's minigames from Sister Location, and strangest of all, Fall Fest, something that would have happened 50 plus years ago. So often,
It also doesn't help that the location of the game in that room is the burned down location of the FNAF 6 location, which we also visit in Security Breach.
the bat.
Now, it is hard to say of when FNAF 6 takes place and then how many years is in between FNAF 6 shutdown and closing and Fazbear Entertainment no longer be a corporate entity to, the FNAF VR, AR era of FNAF, where we get into like the Glitch Trap and Mimic and Little Purple People and Vanny and the Pizza Pletz era. It's hard to say how many years has passed because, again, we go from FNAF 6 burning down and it no longer being a corporate entity to now you're making these VR games in universe and you're making a giant mall Pizza Pletz. Why would you do all these insane, elaborate projects if you're no longer a corporate entity? It makes no sense. So it also doesn't help that you're playing, of all locations, FNAF 6, which, hey, I love some FNAF 6. We all do. We all love Henry's iconic speech. But we don't need to visit FNAF 6 location in all the most recent games in some regard.
Using any of these minigames in any way presents a problem, because what are these minigames? And if you're not sure what they are, how are you supposed to use them as evidence? But if we are to assume that these minigames happened in any way, then I think they're at least valid to talk about. And it would be frankly crazy to release a game where all of the minigames never happened. What's the point? And we know for a fact that some of these minigames...
Hey, that was the logic when FNAF 4 came out and why people were so frustrated about MatPat's theory of how FNAF 1, FNAF 2, FNAF 3, FNAF 4, those 4 games could all be tied to Dream Theory, and why the community all collectively hated that idea and sent so much hate to MatPat and Scott is because we've been talking about this series. We've been talking about the lore. We've been so obsessed with the story, so much where we were counting literal, Freddy buttons and Foxy toes and saying, hey, if there's slightly more or less buttons on this Freddy animatronic and there's slightly more or less toes on this Foxy animatronic, that must mean they're totally different. That must mean all these different lore implications. Just for us to come out that, hey, FNAF 1 and FNAF 4, it may all be tied to Dream Theory and none of it actually happened. So all the years you've been talking about the series, you've been talking about, these Foxy toes and Freddy buttons, yeah, none of it actually happened. So you just been wasting your time. So sucks to be you. Nah, I don't know about that. But I do know that will not be the first time FNAF has gone down that path where it's like, everything feels meaningless.
Did happen. Roxy gets the masks she wears in Ruin in one of these minigames, so on and so forth. Luckily for us, we don't have to talk about any of the more stranger minigames that are harder to explain, like Sister Location. The 2 minigames of note that I want to bring up are the Fall Fest ones I'd mentioned earlier, the Carousel, and all of the Phazzer Blast levels. Granted, I say 2 minigames, but As I just said, there's 2 carousel and like 5 or 6 phaser blasts. So in reality, there's like 6, 7 minigames we're talking about here, but they're 2 groups. There's the carousel and phaser blast. Phaser blast is your classic shooting style minigame, where there are targets to hit, and at first it's a gun, then a gun and balls, then a gun and balls and darts, and it just gets bigger and bigger as you go. Genuinely one of the most fun things to do in the game. But there's a secret path in these minigames, where if you shoot a specific rocket in each level, you slowly break more and more of the attraction until eventually starting a fire and burning it down. Unlocking the last secret level, where we're defending ourselves from a cardboard cutout of Springtrap with the tools we've gathered in the burnt remains of this Fall Fest. The carousel is a bit more straightforward. We have to do a repair task while in the middle of the spinning carousel, all the while keeping Moon at bay with a flashlight. The harder version of the level is the same thing, but now there's fire everywhere and the tasks are more difficult. So, 2 Fall Fest minigames that end in a fire. Now, we'd been predicting that there was some sort of Fall Fest fire for a long time now, especially after Help Wanted 2 came out. Both of these end in a fire. This poster kind of looks like it has a fire on it, even to the point that in FNAF AR there was the Dark Carnival or Dark Circus or whatever, which was this walkable area that felt like a Fall Fest attraction, and it was filled with fire hazards. Barrels of oil, loose hay and wood, a bad combination. But in Secret of the Mimic, we learned even more about this potential Fall Fest fire and its cost, because we learned that Fiona Murray went to make sure everything at Fall Fest would go smoothly, and she never made it back. Then in Moon.exe, we see the statue that represents her with burn marks, with a Fall Fest snow globe at her feet, all but confirming that not only did the Fall Fest go up in flames, but it took the life of Fiona Murray. But that itself isn't new. Ever since Secret of the Mimic came out, pretty much all—
Man, if Steel Wool or some other studio, because obviously Steel Wool's not the only studio to be tied to FNAF games, especially main games. Like, I want to say Into the Pit was made by, I think it's Mega Cat Studios, I believe. If they do not make a game that is based on the location of Fall Fest, they don't make a Fall Fest game, that will be the biggest blue ball moment I think I will remember in this series. Because what is the point? You've been teasing Fall Fest in Secret of the Mimic, FNAF VR Help Wanted 2, the FNAF AR game, which, yeah, technically doesn't even exist in the real world anymore because the developers nuked that project entirely. But you've talked about Fall Fest for all these games in all these years. So, to put it simply, either make the Fall Fest game or don't promote it or tease it at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, why have you been promoting this game for all these years? Just make the Fall Fest game.
All of us immediately understood that Fiona Murray died at the Fall Fest, likely due to the fire. So why am I bringing it up now? Well, I think we finally have some decent evidence to tell us where the fire started. Man, this place really just goes.
Oh, sorry. Not Spawn, but I believe that is a background for the Backrooms, which this movie I have not seen. But something I will say about the Backrooms is it's another project made by a YouTuber, which shoutouts to you, to be from our YouTube scene, but also it's made by A24, the same studio that is making a bunch of other video game adaptation movies, Death Stranding, Elden Ring. So they got a lot of video game products up their sleeve as well.
Now look, I get it. The title of the video is William's Forgotten Victim, and I just mentioned Fiona Murray dying in a fire at Fall Fest. Don't get ahead of me. I want to address out the gate, I'm not the first person to suggest that William Afton killed Fiona Murray.
Fool! Fool. Okay. I want to think, okay. I don't know if I want to take my headphones off because I want to think about that for a second. Ha! Now, off rip immediately, I don't know if I believe that. But, you know what? let's just dive in. Let's just think about this for a second. So, immediately, what do we know about Edwin and William Afton? We know Edwin does not trust William Afton because Edwin's father said, hey, don't trust William Afton. Don't trust Fazbear Entertainment. So we already know that Edwin and William Afton were not immediately buddy-buddy. And we also know that William Afton poached all of Edwin's employees from the Costume Manor to come work for good old Willie A down at Fazbear Entertainment Lane. So we know that, the very minimum of their relationship. And we also know, I don't know if this is related, but we know Edwin and Henry are good buddy-buddy. Actually, it's not Edwin and William Afton. Edwin and Henry are good buddy-buddy because they're not only on a first-name basis, but they call each other nicknames. Like Edwin calls him Hen for some reason, which is cute. So imagine that. The person that you don't trust, you don't have any positive connections with, you come to find out your distrust was right because they poached all your employees, also killed your wife? I mean, again, it would add more to the theory of don't trust Fazbear Entertainment, but again, like I was saying, talking about the Charlotte spiel of, hey, we've gone down this, I don't want to say like redemption arc, but this change of perspective where we saw William Afton as just the killer, just the killing purple guy who goes around and kills people in a yellow rabbit suit at a pizzeria, to now being more of a, again, not a redemption arc, but it's more of a tragic tale of other things happen, go wrong in his life for him to, lash out and do these, horrible, deeds as a response. So why would he kill Fiona? Right? Why? Because again, I doubt they would do it just because. So what's the reason? That's why I want to know. That's my pushback. But I'm not going to cancel it. I'm not going to shut this theory out. If that's what happened, I want to know more. I want to know the reason why. What made William Afton kill?
In fact, it was a theory that came out pretty much immediately after Secret of the Mimic. But it was a theory I was never fond of because it was mostly a logic and vibes theory rather than an evidence-backed one. The argument, as far as I'm aware, up until now was, well, William Afton is a killer, and
yeah,
Fiona Murray could have been an obstacle in his way to get MCM, so he probably killed Fiona Murray to get MCM. And I get that. I understand the logic. And because...
But again, it feels like, I don't know, what's the best way I can explain it? It feels like you are going from, doing simple addition, subtraction, multiplication in, third grade, elementary school, to then immediately jump into working for NASA and trying to build a spaceship. Yeah, it's still math at the end of the day, but the levels are going from third grade addition, subtraction to, doing literal rocket science. Where's the connection? Where's the connective tissue? We go from here to all the way over there. Wait, how do we get all the way over here? That's what's not making sense. That's my pushback.
As I acknowledge it, I want to start with that argument. After all, you need motive, means, and opportunity, and if we're going to talk about the means and opportunity, we might as well bring up the motive.
Which, again, is my main pushback. William Afton needs a motive.
Now, we know from Secret of the Mimic that William Afton wanted to obtain MCM and all of its properties, likely so that he could make them make more animatronics for Fazbear, without paying them super well. And he didn't just want the company, he was desperate for it, actively poaching employees, looking for inside information, making contracts with MCM, and purposely messing with them to waste Murray's Costume Manor's time and money. Look, Edwin Murray's a bad businessman, and he was gonna go bankrupt eventually, but William Afton was doing everything in his power to expedite that process. A fire at Fall Fest would ultimately benefit William Afton. It would be a huge blow to the public image of Murray's Costume Manor, but also likely to their investors. Fall Fest as a concept is a win-win for Murray's Costume Manor. Not only do they get the public to like their company more, but it's a perfect time to showcase to investors how effective and safe their animatronics and costumes are. So if you're showing off to investors, and you have a massive fire, that's not good. So when we learned that there definitely was a fire at Fall Fest, many people assumed that William Afton was the one to set it. And while that's a
Flint and steel! I had to.
completely logical line of reasoning, my problem with it was that there was never any evidence. And lighting a fire to an entire festival where people are actively attending is a huge deal, especially for that early in the timeline. In the 1970s, we know William Afton was a bad guy and a seedy, gross businessman, but we have no idea that he's a murderer that early in the timeline, and risking that many lives seems insane without some sort of evidence to back it up.
That's also something that I thought about, but I couldn't really put into words. But, you know, they carried me 80% of the way, so let me finish off the other 20%. But that's something that I didn't really put into words yet. But that is also another big jump that I just didn't put into words yet. That it is a big difference to, you know, kill Charlotte in the back alleyway who was locked outside the pizzeria, or to use the sprain Bonnie rabbit suit and lure 5 kids one-on-one, mind you, into a back room and kill them and stuff their bodies in the suits and have them never be found again because they're stuffed in the suits. Like, those are like one-on-one kills, pretty much. To then go to a mass fire that is sure to kill more than one person is a little bit of a jump, right? Like, again, William Afton not agreeing with any of his decisions, right? It's not my campaign saying William Afton did nothing wrong, but what I'm saying is there's a big difference between, you know, killing one person individually pretty much each time. Even the missing children said, well, yeah, it's 5 kids in total, but he's luring one person each time. So it's a one-on-one. And then setting fire to potentially, I don't know, dozens, hundreds, thousands of people could die from your actions. Like, why?
It's why I personally never subscribed to the theory until now. So what evidence is there? What changed my mind? Well, I started going down the rabbit hole to find it, based on a suggestion about the carousel minigame sent into the podcast. Every week, I answer questions and theories submitted via email and Patreon on my podcast, the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Mostly about Five Nights at Freddy's, but sometimes other indie horror, sometimes indie stuff in general like Digital Circus, etc. And one email was sent in by B, she, her. I'll put the full comment probably in the description or the pinned comment. Her email was essentially to bring up one of those Help Wanted minigames I had mentioned, the carousel. Her theory was that Fiona Murray may have died in a manner similar to what we see happen in the carousel minigame. After all, she went there to make sure things ran smoothly, because Murray's Costume Manor was providing Fall Fest with attractions and animatronics. We know that not
If the evidence, I'm going to pause right here. If the evidence is simply, we know there was a fire at Fall Fest, and we also know there was a carousel at Fall Fest, meaning they must be linked. If that's the evidence, like, I mean, okay, I get it, but, you know, I need a little bit more than, I need a little bit more spice on that.
Not only do they build the animatronics, but MCM is able to build things like bumper cars and carousels, so they likely built those attractions as well. And if Fiona Murray, one of the co-executives of Murray's Costume Manor, was on the premises and the MCM carousel went down, she'd be the perfect person to go in and fix it. And if she was actively fixing the carousel when the fire started, then her being trapped inside and dying to the fire works very well. And on the podcast, I acknowledge that this is possible, but I still wanted more. Just this alone, while a great nugget of information, isn't necessarily a fully fleshed out theory. So I started racking my brain to try to figure out if we can somehow link William Afton to this Fall Fest. We finally have a strong link of Fiona Murray to one of these minigames. Is there anything else in the franchise?
Also, the whole idea about Fiona being a technician, having a Faz wrench, and knowing how to use it, like, what evidence is there? Like, I mean, maybe she knows how to use a Faz wrench, but all we really know about her is she sold off her image and likeness to, be a voice actress for Miss Helpful, right? And having, genius, like, creative ideas, like, designing Chica, in Chica the Mimic, but nowhere does she give off the impression that she knows how to use, like, Faz wrenches and be, like, a technician, right? Right? Because the reason why I'm pushing back on that is if all the evidence is simply, well, she's a, not only a named character, but, one of the, executive higher up people at Fazbear Entertainment, or connected to them in some way, that's how she would have knowledge and experience with, like, Faz Wrench and be a technician. Like, okay, I guess. But, is there any evidence that Edwin would know how Faz Wrench would work either? I don't believe so. Same goes for Henry. I don't believe he would know either. The only person that we know for certain that has experience with a Faz wrench would be Cassie's dad. But she's not a higher up or anything. He's a literal technician for Fazbear Entertainment. So why would the higher ups people know how to use the technology? I don't know about that.
That can link William Afton to the Fall Fest fire. And then it hit me. There is another Fall Fest minigame in Help Wanted 2. In fact, there's another Fall Fest minigame in Help Wanted 2 where we start a fire. Phaser Blast. I mean, playing this game, you literally set fire to the Fall Fest. But I hear you. What does that have to do with William Afton? Like, at the end of the day, this minigame more than anything implies that Cassie's dad was the one who started the Fall Fest fire? And that does not make any sense. How could we possibly link this Phaser Blast minigame to William Afton? Well, for one, it starts off as sci-fi and western, but quickly shifts to FNAF 1, 2, and kind of 3, with the special burnt minigame that you unlock, which already is weird and starts pointing to other spots in the timeline that are more related to William Afton. I mean, in a way, the final boss of this entire section is William Afton, Springtrap. And sure, that is a loose connection, admittedly. Springtrap is in it, so it's gotta be about William Afton. I hear you, but there...
Not only that, but the Springtrap, the animatronic, has taken on so many different forms that it honestly doesn't feel special anymore. You have Springtrap, you have Burn Trap, you have Scrap Trap, Glitch Trap potentially. It's still hard to say.
There is another connection. A connection that I think is frankly stronger, but admittedly makes me sound like an insane person. Turn around in Phaser Blast. What do you see? Hills, trees, and a pickup truck. Would you believe me?
Yes. I'm trying to think. Pickup truck. Where would I remember a pickup truck in this series? I don't believe you see pickup trucks driving the Midnight Motorist minigame. which is the one time you see cars in this series from my memory. Pickup truck, okay.
If I told you that truck is the evidence I need to suggest this minigame is about William Afton.
I'm listening.
Hear me out. I know, that's how the Midnight Motorist car.
Yep.
But this pickup truck is not only in Phazerblast. This pickup truck has shown up 2 other times in Steel Wool FNAF games. In 2 other games, actually. The first time it ever showed up was in the lobby of Curse of Dreadbear DLC for Help Wanted, where it sat just outside the lobby, headlights on, pointed at us.
Okay. I'm not trying to sound like the but actually guy, even though I'm probably gonna sound out with what I'm about to say, not to be a contrarian again, but that could simply be just a design detail. And what I mean by that is, think about it. You have cars pointing at a large projector. Why would this not just simply be like a, drive-in movie, right? Movies where cars pull up to the large projector to watch movies, right? It could just simply be that. So that's my counterpoint here.
Interestingly to note, the only thing we can possibly see on the horizon that this car could have driven from is the FNAF 4 house, implying that someone drove from the FNAF 4 house to here in a car. I mean, William Afton lives at the FNAF 4 house, but I hear you. That's a loose connection. Maybe that's just a Fall Fest car. Maybe this car is the Fall Fest car. Well, I mentioned this showed up 2 other times. The other time we see this pickup truck, believe it or not, is embedded in the wall outside of the underground Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in Security Breach.
Huh?
And the fact that it's embedded in the wall of that cave, it is the last thing you see before walking past the blob and encountering Burntrap, the still somehow relevant corpse of William Afton. 2 other times in this franchise, we see a truck, and it's immediately linked to William Afton in some way. And now in Phazerblast, we again see the same pickup truck with no immediate connection. The only connection being that in this minigame, we light a fire that burns down Fall Fest. And if that's true, we have the minigame of Phazerblast to imply that William Afton started the fire, and the minigame of the carousel to imply Fiona Murray died in it. This story that a lot of people have been saying for a while, in my opinion, finally has some legs to stand on. William Afton, desperate to claim MCM for his own, finally decides to make a big public stunt to ruin its reputation, going to the Fall Fest and starting a fire. Something that was frankly quite easy to do, proving to the public that this isn't even safe, let alone something that Edwin Murray should be running. But what he didn't anticipate for was that Fiona Murray, Edwin's wife, would have been there at the time, trying to help the Fall Fest run smoothly. And while repairing the carousel, she got trapped in the flames, dying at that Fall Fest. And that singular act of greed is what, in a way, started this entire timeline. If it wasn't for Fiona Murray's death, Edwin wouldn't have sought to replace her with the Mimic. And if he never replaced her with the Mimic, then David wouldn't have died. And Edwin Murray wouldn't have gone crazy. And the Mimic wouldn't have been obtained by William, and he likely wouldn't have begun to learn about replacing humans and possession, and working in the sister location bunker, which eventually leads to the death of the crying child. In a way, this original sin from William Afton sprouts into the entire timeline. So yes, I'm finally joining the...
Alright, so as we are up here, again, what do you think about this... I don't know what to call it, William Afton truck Fiona Fall Fest theory. We got Fiona Fall Fest Fire Friday on this Fazbear theory, I guess. I don't even know how many F's that is. But what do you think about this theory? Honestly, again, I think my opinion is still the same of when I first heard it, where it's like, I'm not shutting it down immediately, but I do think I need to know more evidence in what's going on here. Because again, it's quite a big jump to go from this character who we've known for over a decade, where, yes, he does kill people, but the context has always been he's killing people like one at a time, pretty much, to then change to this large fire that would take even more victims than just one singular person. Like, that's a big jump. And yeah, I know this franchise is known to take some pretty absurd leaps and jump the shark way more times than I can count. Like, again, this is a series that, originally started out as this like spooky ghost story of, kids going missing and potentially being stuffed in the animatronic suits, to now we're talking about literal purple people, Bonnie Guppies, and Phasgoo, where it's able to make a robot clone of yourself. Obviously, this series goes to wild turns. But even that is pretty wild to me, where it's like William Afton killing people in one way for decades, all of a sudden does a mass fire to try to kill more people. Like, big leap, one, and two, again, why? Why does he do it? Like, if, again, if the reason why he, wanted to set a fire to Fall Fest to tarnish, Edwin's, company, and, eventually poach all the employees, if that's the reason, like, okay, but again, like, why? If the costume manor was already going under and the employees were already, starting to leave and go for Fazbear Entertainment and leave Edwin behind, you're already winning. You're already getting what you want. Like, you're already ruining the business as it is. Like, you didn't need to burn the Fall Fest if his company is already going down under. Like, you didn't need to do the Fall Fest thing. So, I don't know. Like, that's my immediate reaction. Maybe I'm not understanding the timeline. Maybe there's stuff that I'm forgetting either from Security of the Mimic or other games as well. So if I'm forgetting stuff, let me know. But also let me know your thoughts if you believe this theory way more than me. But as always, these are just theories at the end of the day, and not taking any shots, not getting personal. It's all fun and games at the end of the day, because I think we all have the same goal, where we simply love this series, love to talk about it, love to theorize about it, and we're going to keep it that respectful, kumbaya way.